Well, thank you, Dave, for this invitation, and good morning, everybody. It's really a thrill and an honor to be with you today. In February 1983, on a Friday morning, I was sitting across the desk from Jack Wixom. He is or was at the time, the Vice President of Marketing for the O.C. Tanner Company. I was applying for a position as an entry-level marketing analyst, freshly minted MBA. I'd met with 4 or 5 other executives, had maybe 12 or more other interviews over the course of a few weeks. And as I sat there across from Jack's desk, I knew I was not going to get a job offer. Jack was not sure about me, I could just tell. And so as the interview wound down and I stood up to shake his hand, I heard myself say, have you ever done that? Have you ever heard yourself say something that you hadn't ever thought of before, hadn't reasoned it out, hadn't considered it? I heard myself say, Mr. Wixom, I can tell you're not sure about me, but I can do this job, I can do it well, I won't disappoint you. I need a chance. So I'm going to come to work on Monday, and I'll work for free for 3 months. And after that, you can decide if you want to keep me or not. I came back on Monday, and Jack met me at the door with a job offer. And that's just over 38 years ago. I tell you that story as we begin because I'm looking at a sea of leaders and founders of Evergreen companies, and I admire you, I honor you, I love what you're doing. I didn't know what that meant in 1983. I didn't know O.C. Tanner was or would become an Evergreen company. I hardly knew what they did. I hardly had anything to offer. But for me, like for you and for many of your employees, and even people in your community, the work you're doing is life-changing. This company has shaped me. It has encouraged me. It has taught me. It has energized me. I dare say it has even blessed me. Now that's the impact that you are having. And as you look around the corner and try to see out 4 or 5 years, as we all do, to anticipate how to position our businesses for the future, for relevancy and success, keep that in mind, I would urge us all. Look out not just 4 or 5, look out 10, 20, look out 50, look out 100 years. Try to imagine what your company can do for thousands of people that work in it and that live around it in the community. Dave asked me to talk about, as he mentioned, lessons from people-first cultures. This last year, we were fortunate for the 3rd time to be named to the Fortune 100 Best Places to Work For list. It's a lot of fun. We want to have a great workplace culture. We want to be a great place to work. We also love the fact that of the 99 others on the list this year, 30 of them are clients. And so I'm going to share with you some of the things that they do in common, that we know they do, that helps them to be the kind of culture and the kind of organization that people want to work for. First, just a little context about O.C. Tanner. We are going to probably hit just over $600 million in sales this year. We have 1,400 employees around the world. We're headquartered in Salt Lake City with other offices and major employment centers in these cities that you see. We were founded in 1927. I like to think of us as, and I say this often in our company, we're a 94-year-old startup. And I love that. I love that energy and that feeling and that focus on the future. We're a 94-year-old startup. How long have you been starting up? We're not the only company, by the way, here this week that was started in 1927. Where's Carrie from Freeman? Right there. Another 94-year-old startup. Freeman and O.C. Tanner, of course, are, recognizable names everywhere. And so everybody knows about them, starting up in 1927. But we're also on a list with a few other lesser-known names, that started in 1927, like Marriott, 7-Eleven, Gerber, Georgia Pacific, to name a few. There's someone here whose business was started by their great-great-grandfather in the 1880s, I think. These are remarkable future legacies, and we're quite proud of ours, and we intend to hold on to it. This is what we do. Culture Cloud is our series and assembly of software, technology, services, and design and manufacturing CAD/CAM capabilities that help us to craft a culture strategy that we then help our clients to deploy throughout their organization. They may have a few hundred employees, they may have hundreds of thousands. Of course, these on the Fortune 100 list tend to be much larger in size than we are, and we love working with them. Here are the 4 things they have in common. We'll start with this one. They all have a people-first culture. Now, what that really means is that they're very intentional. They think about their people-first priority as they make long-term strategic bets and decisions. They know they have an asset that they can count on, that they can go to the bank on, and they think about that as they plot their strategy going forward. People-first cultures are remarkable in that way. We do an annual survey of over 40,000 employees and leaders to find out what's going on around the world in workplace culture. And we learn a lot about this. We learn things that help us to shape our products and services. We learn where our gaps are. We discover ways and insights that we can share with our clients as they continue on their journey of creating and nurturing and cultivating a great workplace culture. One of the things that has come out of this survey or this study that we do every year has been a culture framework. Culture is sort of a hard thing to describe. It can be a little bit nebulous. You probably know what it feels like. You can probably sense it. There's a culture at the Tugboat Institute. You can feel it. You can sense it. You may be able to put it to pen and paper, but you can certainly sense it and feel it, and you know it. I like to think of a workplace culture as a way of being. What's the company's way of being? I also tend to think of it in terms of what's it feel like to work here or there? Those are things that speak to me about workplace culture. But these 6 elements also, and we call them talent magnets because they draw people in to an organization and they retain them. Maybe think of it this way. They help people to think about what they do all day for a living, not just as a job, but as a career. Do you want people coming into your place of work, into your enterprise, into your Evergreen company, thinking about it as a job or as a career where they're contributing, they're valued, they're needed? Not just their hands, but their head and their heart. So purpose. This is why your company exists. This is what you live for. This is your passion. Opportunity is about more than, can I get promoted here? It's about, can I reach a new potential? Am I going to learn something? Am I going to get developed? Will I improve over time? Will I have a chance? Success is, who doesn't want to be a part, right, of a winning team? And if the team isn't winning this year, who doesn't want to be a part of helping it to do better next year? People want to be a part of a winning team, a growing team, an intentionally focused team. Appreciation is a really big one. There's no such thing in a great workplace culture as rationing appreciation. I can't thank Steve again today because I thanked him last week. No, you can, you should. Appreciation is sort of the glue that puts this all together. Well-being is about, do I trust that this company really has some authenticity when they say they care about me? Are they interested in my financial well-being, my physical health and well-being, my emotional, mental well-being? Can I trust them? Do they care about me? Is it personal? And the last one here is leadership. And this isn't about who are the leaders. This is about how do they lead? How do they coach? How do they develop relationships? How do they communicate? How do they build on the culture? How do they connect me? So we'll talk a little bit more about some of these in a few minutes, but if you're wondering what the elements of culture, a great workplace culture are, there are several models, but this is a good one, and the others are similar. And I suspect you're all thinking about these already. This is really an interesting element that came out of our study this last year during the pandemic. We wanted to find out, was there a difference in really great workplace cultures and not so great? And so we studied and we looked at engagement, retention, inclusion, and burnout. And you see in that first column the impact of COVID-19 on thriving workplace cultures. Not much damage done to the culture. Minus 1% on engagement, minus 3 on retention, minus 1 on inclusion. Burnout went up 13%. On the other hand, on the far right column, the impact of the pandemic on non-thriving workplace cultures, huge. Engagement, 52% negative hit. Retention down 53%, inclusion down 51%, burnout up 81%. Workplace culture matters. The second thing these companies have in common is purpose. There's a recipe here, and you can just take a look at this and think about it. If you've developed an employee value proposition that your employees can identify with, and it's connected to a customer value proposition, where your customers value what you're doing for them, and they align to your purpose, and that connects to a greater social good, you have a home run. You have found sort of the sweet spot of a great purpose. So think about those three things as you think about developing your purpose, and then communicate it, share it broadly throughout the organization. Here's an example. One of our clients, KPMG, several years ago, was experiencing significant turnover, especially at the 1, 2, 3 year mark. New employees just weren't connecting with the organization. They didn't connect with the purpose. Their leader over HR, Bruce Fow, decided to do a little bit of an archaeological dig to discover what they could about this. And his team realized that there were stories in their history that talked about and exemplified the purpose of KPMG. The purpose wasn't to audit something. It's much bigger. And what they found first was a series of stories. The first one, we champion democracy. This is a communication campaign that we helped them to develop and roll out. Did you know that KPMG architected the election process, integrity, and counted the results, not like adding up, the 12 votes on the Miss America contest or something that those accounting firms usually do. But they were instrumental in the first democratic election in South Africa when Nelson Mandela was elected. They told that story. We champion democracy. They told many other stories. I combat terrorism. I help farms to grow. They had over 40,000 submissions from their employees, stories about what KPMG does that connect the personal employee value prop to the customer value prop to good. And it was very successful. Here's one that's a little closer to home for me. About a year ago, we all recall those images of hospital workers not having enough PPE, personal protective equipment. It was horrible, the scenes we saw, and very, very challenging for those people in that industry. One of our engineers, Josh, internalized this and had an idea. He thought we could take a couple of our manufacturing lines and divert them and convert them into making face shields, which were sorely needed. He ran with the idea on his own. He got together with some others in the local Salt Lake City medical community, and he sourced some raw materials, and he put together some equipment, and he purchased some others on his P card, and he experimented over a couple of 24-hour day periods working around the clock. He sensed the urgency. I didn't know anything about it. And that evening I was in front of my yard doing a little yard work, and a neighbor came by and he stopped and he said to me, and I will never forget it, "Wow, Dave, I am so impressed with you. You are such a great leader. I can't believe what you guys are doing with this personal protective equipment. That's phenomenal." I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't, and I said that to him, and he said, "Well, it was on the news." So I went inside, and I looked it up, and it was. A reporter had sniffed out the story, and we had a team of our manufacturing people who couldn't work from home, who rallied around Josh's idea, and this turned out to be the highlight of our 2020. And let me tell you about culture. This is not an idea that the CEO had. The CEO didn't think of it. He didn't drive it. He didn't even approve it. The culture did. And if it had been a bad idea, the culture would have spit it out or spat it out. But it was a great idea. The third thing these companies have in common is their focus on inclusion. And I'm going to share with you, there's been a lot written about inclusion, but I'm going to share with you just a little bit different version of this. If you have, and you're working on, a great workplace culture, it will not tolerate discrimination. It will not tolerate exclusion. It will not let it exist. It will repel it. A great workplace culture is a great place to start and to develop, and it will solve a lot of the other problems that you might think you need to be working on. And inclusion is about more than demographics. It's more of a synthesis. Think about that a little bit. Let me share with you a couple of specific things we found companies are doing. These are some specific things that these 30 companies are doing and they have in common. One, they're expanding opportunities for more employees to participate in special projects. How often do we go to the same 2 or 3 people that we know we can count on for a special project? Try something else. Expand that opportunity, give it to others. 2, offer everybody the leadership development, not just your leaders or your high potentials. Think about what that'll do in terms of allowing everybody to start thinking about what it's like to be a leader. Offer that to everybody. 3, recognize great work and the ways that employees and teams of employees uniquely contribute their talent and efforts. I'm going to pound that home. That is so important. And that brings us to the fourth and final 4 of these that these companies have in common, and that's recognition. We talked about these elements of a culture earlier. That one at the bottom, appreciation, has an impact on all of the others. If you have to start somewhere or emphasize somewhere, start there. If you do some great work on that, the correlation studies show that it lifts all of the others. The others can lift each other too, but this issue of appreciation seems to be sort of the connective tissue in a culture that causes everything else to improve. And one last thought on recognition. You might tend to think that it's focused on the receiver, right? We're going to gather together and we're going to acknowledge Susan, and it's meaningful to her. It's personal. It's emotional. It's not corny. You got to get over that if you think it is. It's genuine. You can make it authentic. But it's not just about Susan. There's the receiver, but there's also the giver. If you train and develop your people, your leaders, to recognize others, it will make them better leaders. They got to think about what they're going to say. They know they're going to be watched. And they'll rise up to the occasion. They always will. And then lastly, the observers. People are there to watch. I sometimes look around to see if people, we can have this many or more. I never think, wow, 20 minutes on this. I can imagine all the work that's not getting done. No, I think this is the best 20 minutes of the day. These are 4 key things I think can help as you contemplate your workplace culture. These are some snapshots of one of our recognition moments last year during the summer as we met in the parking lot and in the bed of our pickup trucks recognized our teams for making personal protective equipment. It'll be a highlight in our culture for, I think, decades to come. Thank you all very much.